To help break down what you need to know from the summit, let's bring in our correspondent, Dave Keating. He's joining us from Brussels. Hi there, Dave. Leaders have just entered the building and given statements for the press. What did we learn from that?
Well, we learned a few things. We definitely can get a feeling now that they probably will reach an agreement on the budget based on this German compromise. Again, this standoff was about Poland and Hungary opposing a rule of law mechanism inserted into the new budget for 2021 to 2027. They opposed this mechanism because it could withhold fund from countries not found to be obeying the rule of law. That's namely them. The Commission has already found them to be doing that. The compromise worked out by Germany is that the Commission couldn't start that procedure until after Poland and Hungary have exhausted possible legal challenges at the European Court of Justice. That's probably about 2 years, so it gives them some extra time before the mechanism could possibly be used. We heard from EU leaders, even the ones who are the biggest proponents of the rule of law mechanism, that they do support this compromise. There was a little bit of wavering from Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte and Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, but it does sound like they are going to accept this compromise on both sides, and we should have a budget deal today. On the other hand, on Brexit, people were really not saying anything about Brexit as they came in, and because we journalists still aren't allowed inside the council because of the pandemic, there's no possibility to ask them. So no one was able to ask them to say something about Brexit. Very, very few prime ministers said anything about it. The only ones that said anything, for instance, the Swedish Prime Minister Löfven, just said it's a really, really difficult situation and things are looking really bad. Angela Merkel, Emmanuel Macron, Conte, none of them said anything. So there were no signs of any impending change to the EU's negotiating mandate as the leaders arrived. There was no sign that any of them are getting cold feet, getting nervous, and might be pushing for the EU to drop its red lines and kind of surrender to the UK. But I'm sure that there's very different private conversations going on today. So we'll see if those private conversations today yield anything different.
Right, because those EU-UK negotiations over the trade deal, those are separate from this summit, but of course inescapable. However, the chances of this trade deal working out before the end of the year are now looking very slim, and the EU has put together a sort of contingency plan to try to lessen the damage. Can you tell us more about what's in that plan?
Yeah, the Commission had really been reluctant to publish these contingency plans. EU prime ministers and presidents asked the Commission to do this several weeks ago, but I've heard from EU sources the Commission was very nervous that publishing those contingency plans would make it look like they were giving up on the prospect of a deal. So the fact that they've published this now is a big deal, knowing how reluctant they were to do so. It shows that the Commission thinks that we are more likely than not to have a no-deal outcome, and that's certainly what the feeling I'm getting from here in Brussels. The contingency plans deal with different aspects of transport, of trade. It makes efforts to try to keep airplanes in the air because there may be problems with airplanes taking off and traveling between the UK and the EU. There may be problems with any British person entering the EU because of the coronavirus restrictions and they become a third country. It tries to deal with some of the shipping delays, the backups of trucks that we're expecting at Calais and Dover. There's a lot here. It also tries to keep fishing activity going. So the fact that these have been published, it is a big deal because the Commission waited so late to do it and resisted pressure to do it from national governments for so long. Whether or not that starts to get nerves rattled in London, we'll see. They've given themselves until Sunday to reach a deal, and a lot of that is riding on what happens at the summit behind the scenes. The UK is hoping that behind the scenes, the EU leaders will be discussing amongst themselves and decide to soften their Brexit stance, change their mandate, change their red lines, and agree to what Boris Johnson is demanding. It seems unlikely, but it is kind of their last hope before that supposed final deadline on Sunday.
And we'll, of course, be following anything that comes out of those talks here on France 24. Dave Keating in Brussels, thank you so much for that update.